The other day I was rather bored, so I decided I'd entertain myself by surfing the web and listening to some well-thought-out arguments presented by creationists on YouTube. To make a long story short, I couldn't find any. But I did end up having a very nice conversation with a very friendly and down-to-earth creationist who shall remain nameless. Much was discussed, but one statement caught my attention, and I kind of had to step back and ponder its implications. Evolution is just a fairy tale. I wondered what it was about the theory of evolution that would make this person say this. After all, the theory of evolution is undisputed fact in scientific circles. I wondered if it had anything to do with large numbers, such as millions of years. For some reason, creationists think large numbers are silly. Anyway, I decided to run through a condensed version of evolution to determine just what it was that made this person think it was a fairy tale. Basically, once upon a time, Charles Darwin set out on an expedition aboard the HMS Beagle. After some time, he came upon the Galapagos Islands and noticed a multitude of different animals living on the various islands. But one thing surprised him. Many of the islands of the Galapagos were identical in their features, but the animals living on these islands varied wildly from island to island. He wondered why God the Creator would populate the islands in this way. Then it hit him. What if these islands were originally settled by just a few individuals, and over time, and generations, their bodies changed to adapt to their new environment? He labeled his idea evolution and wrote of his findings in a book titled On the Origin of Species. Rather than a hierarchy of life, Darwin proposed that in fact all life was related, and if you went back far enough in any two family lines, you would eventually find a point where those two bloodlines merged. That the history of all life resembled a tree. One big family tree. Of course, scientists at the time were skeptical of this new claim, and the religious labeled him as a heretic. But one of the predictions Darwin's new theory proposed were that if it were true, that fossils of transitional form should be found in the fossil record. It took a whole 2 years, but patience paid off, and the first transitional form was discovered. It represented a link in the chain from dinosaur to bird, and nowadays it is quite famous, the Archaeopteryx. With this and many other predictions validated, evolution was accepted by the scientific community and has been the major underpinning point of our current understanding of biology and genetics. And they all lived happily ever after. Except the creationists, that is. The end. Now, I don't know what kind of fairy tales this person listened to as a kid, but that is the worst fairy tale I've ever heard. It has none of the defining features of what a fairy tale is. So what is a fairy tale? If you compare some features of fairy tales, you can come up with some common elements. Ironically enough, fairies are not one of them, although some fairy tales actually do refer to fairies. Many of the popular tales contain some conflict between a protagonist and an antagonist. Another common feature is fantasy. You know, magic, mythical creatures, and the like. One very popular theme is talking animals, and just about all fairy tales have a happy ending, some moral lesson to be learned, with the exception of Russian fairy tales, which tend to be rather sad. Anyway, I digress. Evolution doesn't have any of those traits, but the Bible certainly does. Let's just run through a short list of some famous things from the good book. Moral lessons abound in the Bible, and the struggle between good and evil is a constant theme, although it's not always clear who's good and who's evil. Does the Bible contain talking animals? Oh yes. Much like Puss in Boots has a talking cat and the Little Red Riding Hood has a talking wolf, the Bible contains talking snakes, talking donkeys, dragons, and these freaky things with 6 wings and their bodies covered in eyes, which can only be described as creatures. But it doesn't stop there. Not only are there talking animals, but the Bible contains talking plants as well, ranging from your good old-fashioned talking trees to talking bushes on fire. Some of the more fantastic elements are magical, floating, flaming sword, magic staffs which can turn into snakes, and magic staffs which can cure poison. Not to mention wizards, witches, telepathy, and unicorns. Much like the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, the Bible contains giants. Here's the average height of a person living in the Iron Age. Here's the height of the tallest person in recorded history. And here's the height of the biblical Goliath, who stands at a whopping 11 feet tall. And then there are the Nephilim. Yeah. Much like the story of the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf, Jehovah huffs, and he puffs, and he blows open the Red Sea. And just to top it all off, we have a good old horde of zombies. It's clear that one of these books is a fabricated collection of fairy tales, myths, and pseudo-history, and that the other is the basis for a scientific theory grounded firmly in reality. Let's call a spade, shall we?
Greetings, YouTube! This has been a Longbow production. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. This video has no affiliation with Yevni Yilmaz whatsoever, aka Agent XBQ. But if you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'll also enjoy Tales of Mere Existence on Agent XBQ's channel. Have a good day!